Hi YouTube. I'm back to make one last video on this topic. I know I don't look well. I'm home today after a long night in the ER. And I wanted to share this story because it's so important. I wasn't told the truth about what I would go through with my miscarriage. I was sent home from my doctor after having my ultrasound and seeing there was no heartbeat and knowing that I was going to pass this little one within the next several days. Didn't know when, knew that my body was preparing, knew that I'd been spotting, so I was to wait. As wonderful as my doctor is, she just did not prepare me for what would come. The next day after having my ultrasound, this was yesterday, at about 3 o'clock, I started heavily cramping. And these aren't the types of cramps that you would associate with your period. I'm going to add a disclaimer right here if you are not interested in hearing every gory detail. Or if you are male and you're just not interested in this type of topic. Or if you are weak-stomached, weak at heart, cry easily, there's a long list. You may not want to watch this video. This is for informative purposes, for people who have been through this, for people who haven't been through this, for people who are going to go through this. I started cramping, and the cramps got worse. They progressed over the next hour or two to the point where it was labor. I was in labor. I was having full labor contractions. They were coming every couple of minutes apart. It's exactly what it felt like. At that point, my husband was telling me we should call the doctor because she had said that I could get pain meds and that she would call the pharmacy, put the order in, he could go get them. I guess I just didn't think it would take so long. I guess I thought it would be a quicker process. I sort of had envisioned the miscarriage because the baby was small, right? I had envisioned the miscarriage of being like a heavy period, like everything would flush out, the uterus would clamp down, the bleeding would stop, I would feel crappy and sad, but it would all be over, and that's what I envisioned. Well, that's not what happened. After going through about 2 hours of hard labor, my water broke, just like it would if you were having a full-term baby. It broke, it gushed everywhere. It's the first time I've ever had my water break in labor. Usually with my 2 boys, my water either had to be broken with the first one, or the second one it broke right as I started pushing the very end of my labor. But my water broke. So I ran to the bathroom and I sat down, and immediately I heard a plop into the toilet, and I knew it was the baby. So I reached down and I pulled it out because I could not fathom flushing something so small and precious down the toilet. It's a human life, and I don't care how small it was or how brief it was here. This is probably the hardest part of the story for me, but it was, strangely enough, the easiest part of my evening. So I have to turn this off, I'm getting texts. So I reached down and I pulled out my baby and I held it in my hand, and it fit in one hand, probably a couple inches long. And I looked at it in detail because I needed to. I didn't want to see it, but because I had to see it. I looked at it, and you could count 10 fingers and 10 toes, eyes, ears, nose, mouth. I kind of rolled it to my other hand, and the head fell back, the mouth opened for a minute. I mean, it was a little tiny baby, fully formed. The skin wasn't all red, like I sort of envisioned a fetus having really red skin, translucent. It wasn't. It was peach. It was like my skin. It was definitely very, very thin, but not translucent. Like I couldn't see its organs or anything through it. I mean, it was a little tiny little baby. The umbilical cord had pulled from its abdomen, so it had separated when it came out. I couldn't tell if it was a boy or girl. It looked like it could have been either. I have always called it a girl from the beginning, so I'm going with that. Anyway, I gave her a kiss. And then I asked my husband, I yelled and I said, "Did you want to see her?" And he said, "No, I just can't." I totally understand it. If I'd had the choice, I probably wouldn't have wanted to either, but because I was there, I had to. And in a strange way, it helped me. So I wrapped her up and I set her on the counter. At that point, my uterus kept cramping. I passed the placenta. I passed a lot of clots, and continued to bleed profusely. When I thought it had slowed down, I put on a gigantic pad, like the postpartum ones you get from the hospital. I had some left over. I put on one of those and I went to lay down. After about 10 minutes, I felt a gush and I had to get back up, come to the bathroom. Another gigantic rush of blood come out, a lot of clots. This happened about 5 times. Rush of blood. We're not talking a heavy period even. We're talking hemorrhaging. I was hemorrhaging severely. I'd called my doctor about midway through what was about 2 hours of severe hemorrhaging. And she said if it had lasted another hour, that it couldn't possibly last that long. I would be running out of blood. It lasted another hour. And towards the end, I had one more gush. I stood up to go get my husband and I passed out in the hallway. I had nothing left. He came and put a blanket over me, and at that point when I was laying down, I actually felt a little better once I came to. I was like, okay, I'm losing a lot of blood, but that had to be the end of it. That had to be it. I didn't think there was any more. I didn't think I had any more. And I'm so hard-headed. I just didn't want to go to the ER. I thought my body was going to do this. It could do this. My uterus was cramping down harder with each contraction, trying to stop the bleeding. I laid in the hallway for a few minutes and then I felt another gush. And I got up because I didn't want to bleed all over my hallway. It's just right outside this door. Came into the bathroom, sat down. Huge rush of blood. Huge rush of clots. And at that point, my vision went white. I saw nothing and my hearing started to fade out. I thought I was dying. I thought this was it. Why did I wait so long? Why was I trying to be too strong? I'm not that strong. I needed to go to the hospital and it was too late because I'd lost so much blood. Scariest moment in my life. So not only had I just gone through the most emotionally wrecking time, losing my baby, holding her in my hand and giving her a kiss. But now I was dying. That's what I thought. My husband rushed in, helped me get together. I don't even remember getting down to the car, but somehow we got to the car. He got me to the ER. And we brought my 2 sons with us. And I don't remember a lot at the ER. I remember checking in, and they took all of my information. They hooked me up to an IV. They gave me fluids. They took some blood to do tests to see how much of my blood volume I'd lost. And basically ended up doing an emergency D&C. At that time, the doctor told me what was happening was the uterus wants to clean itself out. It does everything it can to get every last piece out. If something gets stuck, if something can't come out, it uses the body's blood as water to flush it out. And it will keep flushing and flushing and flushing and flushing until, one, either it gets everything out, or two, you run out of blood. So with the DNC, they go in. First of all, they tried to examine my cervix. She couldn't see it because it was bleeding so heavily that there was no way that she would quickly enough be able to sop up the blood in order to see anything. It just was rushing and rushing and rushing. And I'm getting weaker and weaker and weaker at that point. And I'm thinking, why are you stopping this? I am going to bleed out. And I guess, you're in the hospital. They can always give you more blood, right? But I was panicking, and I could see my husband was terrified. My baby didn't know what was going on. My 13-year-old was out talking to the ER valet guy. They did the DNC. She said that immediately she saw what the problem was. There was a piece of the sac that was twisted and entangled and stuck to the side of my uterus and partially hanging out my cervix. And once she removed all of that, it immediately clamped down and the blood slowed, and I could feel it. They couldn't put me under for the DNC. I was too weak. My mother had had one a long time ago, and she advised me if I ever had to have one to always be put under because they are terrible and frightening and painful, and it was. But there was nothing I could do. They gave me medicine and the IV drip that helped make it so I didn't care, but it didn't numb the pain. It was still there. They swab with a soapy Benadine solution. They open up the uterus. They clean everything out. They suction everything out. At that point, I wasn't opposed to a DNC, obviously, because I wanted the blood to stop, but also because my baby was no longer inside. Originally, I was opposed to a DNC because I could not fathom the thought of someone sucking my baby from my womb, knowing that it may not even come out in one piece. My baby had a right to be born, and she was. So, with the bleeding stopped, I quickly started to feel better. They pumped me full of IV fluids, told me I was borderline on the edge of needing a blood transfusion, and I declined. I said, well, if I'm not dying without it, then I would rather not. I can replace my blood volume. I've got iron supplements at home. I'll drink lots of fluids, and I will rest. Just means I'm going to feel crappier for longer, but it's all part of the process. So I wanted to put this video up because the last 24 hours have been so terrifying, and I was so not prepared for it because I did not realize this could happen. My doctor had mentioned that something could get stuck, that the uterus might have a hard time clearing itself if that happens to come in, but I just had no idea. Sitting here making this video, this is the longest I have sat upright since I got back from the ER. I have absolutely zero energy. I've lost half my blood volume. It's almost enough to make me not even want any more children, to not even want to try. I don't know how women go through this over and over, because that was the single most terrifying moment, hours, entire day of my life. And I don't even want a chance going through that again. It was that scary. Anyway, I want to thank all of you again for your support, for all of your messages on my Facebook page, on YouTube. I've gotten flowers, I've gotten cards, and it's been amazing. Nothing, as you know, eases the pain. It's just going to go away in time. But we will be burying our little one. Probably not in the ground in our backyard, but I'm thinking in a pot. I do have a beautiful flowering plant that a really dear friend of mine gave us. And it's got pink many pink roses, and I think that we will bury her beneath the flowers in this pot so that she can come with us whenever we move. We're trying to sell our house right now, so I would not want to put her in the ground here and then have to leave. That would be another loss. So she will come with us. I have a little angel baby, and it's probably the last one I will have. Living or not living. For all of you going through this, my heart aches for you, because I know if you find this video, if you stumble on this video, you were searching these words for a reason, and I'm aching for you because I know exactly what it feels like. Take care of yourself. Watch for signs. Don't try to be too strong. Just, yeah, that's it. All right, everybody. I'll talk to you again soon. I'm healing emotionally and physically, and I'm strong. So thank you for watching. Make healthy choices.